Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today I'm taking a look at the latest in the Unmatched series of games. This is Unmatched, Little Red versus Beowulf. Unmatched is, in my opinion, a fantastic series of games. The central idea being that you're going to take a deck, i.e. a character, and you are going to pit that character against, any other character available. You can play two players, you can play more than that on specific maps, and trying to see who's going to come out ahead. Here we get two new fighters, Little Red Riding Hood with a companion, and then Beowulf with a companion, and they each have their own mechanisms, their own deck of cards. You're also going to get one new battlefield in here, and again, this is all sort of mix and match with every other Unmatched set that's come out before, right? So in this video, I'm going to briefly talk about how the game works. I'm going to touch on it a little bit near the end of the explanation. I'm basically focusing on what's the new thing we get here. So I just want to warn you, because this might not be the best video for you to learn what Unmatched is if you're coming from being unaware of it completely, okay? This is a little bit more targeted at you if you've already played Unmatched or at least understand how it works out, okay? So we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. I'm going to show you both the combatants here. I'm going to show you the new board, and then we'll see you on the other side for some final thoughts. So here we've got everything that comes with the game. You're going to get one board. The board does have two sides, but they're actually the same board. This is the standard look of all the boards that have come out before for the game. And then on the other side, you are going to get a different interpretation of that board. I'll show you that. So you can see it's the same layout. It's the same exact pattern. They've just changed the way that things are marked, basically, to break it down just to a color outline on the board. Okay, I'll talk more about that and, what I think of it, how I like it or don't like it later on in the overview at the end. But I wanted to give you a glance at that. So let's flip it back over to this side and let's talk about the rest of the things you are going to get. And let's continue on the board before we move on to the fighters. This board has one special new feature, and that is doors. It's these three pieces right here that you get, and the game... The rules that tie on to that are that when a fighter is adjacent to a door, such as here, here, or here, for this one, for example, you may close that door with one of these tokens and basically ignore those lines that go across from it, okay? That is free to do. You can freely, without spending an action point, close a door that you are adjacent to. To open a door you are adjacent to, however, takes one of your movement points. So if you are Beowulf here without boosting, and you have your two movement points, if I was, let's say, already here, I could, for my first movement point, open that door, and for the second movement point, I could move in there, okay? So there is one there, there's one there, and one right there. And like I said, when they cover those two lines, they are going to ignore those lines while that door is closed. There's also over here lines that go outside and in, and there's an arch drawn over these lines. It's a little tricky. Visually, it kind of makes you pause, but the arch is just an illustrative choice. It doesn't really mean anything. Those lines communicate perfectly. All right? Now, let's talk about the fighters themselves. You've got Beowulf, like I said, Little Red over here. They both have one secondary character, okay, with their own dials there, and they've each, of course, got some special core idea that that deck is going to be all about. So let's talk about Little Red first. Little Red has, besides the opening card and her special ability, or the breakdown of her special ability, which is all tied to this right here, Little Red's basket. Every card in her deck is going to have a new symbol showing right here beneath the card type, the number, and the name of who can use it, okay? And there's going to be a few different symbols that you'll see. This card here begins in your discard pile, and every further card you discard will end up going on top of it and changing the symbol that shows on top of the discard pile. This is called Little Red's basket, and a lot of cards are going to trigger based on what that symbol is. It could be a knife, it could be a pelt, it could be Wolf's Bane. Or some cards, including the starting card, count as everything. Okay? Now, what does that do? Well, depends. If, for example, we play this card says immediately, this is either an attack or a defense card. There has an immediately effect, which is cancel all effects of the opponent's card. Okay, fine. But then, if the symbol on top of the discard, i.e. in her basket, is Wolf's Bane, then also ignore the value of your opponent's card. It works right now because this is everything. It would work if this was on top of the discard pile, because that symbol there matches the requirement on her card, but it would not work if the symbol in her basket is the pelt, for example. So that's the idea. You've even got some like this one here that say this one is it's an action. It says never leave the path, and if it's a pelt, place Little Red in any space, gain 1 action. If it is the crossed swords there, the knife, it is deal 2 damage to each opposing fighter in Little Red's zone. And if it is the Wolf's Bane, then draw 3 cards. So this card will adapt based on the last thing you discarded. That's the main twist in this deck. How you pilot this deck, the order in which you do things, always keeping an eye on her basket, making sure that you are getting the most value out of the cards you are playing, then discarding, and then the one that comes after that, based on that symbol, is what it's all about. Very clever, very interesting, and one that requires an interesting amount of attention and will definitely reward you for doing things in the right order, so to speak. All right? Let's take a look at Beowulf over here. Beowulf was a little bit simpler, I would say, out of these two. And I gotta say, I like it a little bit more. I like Beowulf more than I like Little Red in this one. He's got rage, what are called rage tokens. He's got 3 of those. He begins with 1 right here. Some cards will earn him more. He can have up to 3, okay? You will spend them for some specific abilities on his cards, and sometimes you simply need to have a certain number and not spend them. Cards will check if you've got them, okay? So, for example, let's take a look at the Ancient Heirloom. This is an attack card for Beowulf. It says this card's effects cannot be canceled, and then it says during combat, you may spend 2 rage to make this card's value 5 instead. You may spend 1 rage to boost this card. You can do both, it says. So if I have all 3, I could do both of these. If I've only got 2, I could choose to do either one. And you just put them back in the pool, and if you earn them later on, well, you take it and put it in front of you again. Many of them, like I said, are going to give you boost, such as this one, an action card that says choose an opponent, they discard 1 random card, gain rage equal to its boost value. Great. Not only do you get rid of one of their cards, but you boost up your rage. Let's find another one here. This one is spend any amount of rage, choose a different effect for each rage spent. And they are draw 2 cards, move Beowulf up to 4 spaces, or he recovers 2 health. Beowulf recovers 2 health. So if I have 2, I can pick 2 different ones. 3, I can do them all, etc. Right? You don't have to spend it all, of course, if you do not want to. Some are quite powerful. Some don't make you get rid of it. This one, for example, the epic poem here, an attack card, and he's got quite a few attack cards. Immediately gain 1 rage, and then during combat, this card's value is +1 for each rage you have, and it specifies you do not spend rage for this effect. Very cool card. If you are raged up, this is a 5, and you don't even have to go into the fight with all 3. You can go into the fight with all 2, immediately gain 1, great, and now it's a 5. Okay? So again, a lot of attacks. But besides that, both decks have a lot of action cards. Okay? They have a lot of these, what's the term they call? A scheme. That's the word I was looking for. They have a lot of scheme cards in both of these decks, which I really like. I think that's a cool card type. Some decks, some of the characters in the other sets for Unmatched don't really utilize that many of them, but here both of these decks have a lot of neat surprises, a lot of interesting combos you have to pursue if you want to do well, of course, and if you want to utilize them to their full potential. Everything else in the game is the same, okay? In the game, you are going to be selecting your fighter. You're going to be selecting your second. The other player will have their fighter and their second. And then you are going to, on your turn, take your 2 actions. And those can be, they're here on the back. You can do the maneuver where you move if you want to, or you draw a card first. You must. And then you may maneuver up to your move. Okay, so 1, 2. You can boost that by discarding a card, move some more. You can scheme where you discard one of those action cards, or you can just attack somebody. These characters, as you see here, which is also very interesting, especially with this matchup, Beowulf, Beowulf are both melee fighters. Little Red is a melee fighter, but the Huntsman is ranged, which is where these colors come in. So the Huntsman could shoot from here to here because they're sharing a color, orange or red. You could also shoot from there to there because they're sharing orange. Okay, so there you go. I think it's a neat matchup. It's a cool idea, these two characters going up against each other. But of course, at this point in the life of Unmatched, that's not the whole picture. This is but one set in a plethora of sets that have come out for Unmatched. And that's partly what I like to look at, is where does this fit into that whole picture? And what do I think of it, not just in a bubble, but as part of that bigger picture. For that, let's go ahead and go back up top, and let me tell you what I think of it. Always makes me happy to see more Unmatched coming out, and this is a very fun set. In many ways, it feels quite advanced. It feels like something you should get certainly after you've played a decent amount of Unmatched. In other ways, it feels classic to the system. These two characters feel like they could have come out in the original original batch of characters, and that would have fit in just fine. And I like that about it. I like the quote-unquote traditional sort of feel of this in many ways. So let's talk about it, shall we? This is going to be basically positives across the board here, but with a couple of little things that make me wonder why it didn't sort of go that way. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. First one, theme. Yes, it's good. Like I said, I like the characters. I like what they're doing here. This is an interesting matchup. It doesn't make any sense, but you know, that's how Unmatched goes. But in some ways, this feels like half of, Battle of Legends Volume 2. They came out with, some time ago, Battle of Legends Volume 1. And that was a bigger set. It had 4 combatants, all from sort of these kinds of trappings, right? So they had, King Arthur and Medusa and things like that. These are nice comparisons to those, right? King Arthur, a very Beowulf sort of character. Medusa is evil, but, well, Little Red here looks scary. So this kind of feels like half that package. I almost wish they would have just figured out 2 more decks and then come out with Battle of Legends Volume 2. So that seems strange. But on the other side of that same token, hey, more Battle of Legends-y kind of characters, right? That's good. The aesthetics are beautiful here. This is a new artist. There's an artist for the board and an artist for the cards. It evokes the feel of the original vibe, the original look of the game, yet breathes new life into the decks of cards here. I think it stays fresh. It is not trying to simply mimic the original look, though they have, again, sort of the same sensibilities, but it's all its own. And I really enjoy it just as much as I enjoy the original artwork, which I think is fantastic. Very stylized, very beautiful. I'm going to come back to the double board thing in one sec. The replay value here, well, I'm going to talk about it now. The replay value here is nice, and I think, again, these two characters are very interesting. But it would have been nice to have a second board on the other side. when they did, for example, Robin Hood versus Bigfoot. There was one board tied to Robin Hood, Sherwood Forest, and then a board for Bigfoot. This one it just feels a little disappointing that you have Little Red Riding Hood, Beowulf, and then you get a board for Beowulf, but you don't get one for Little Red Riding Hood, right? And I understand why that is. There are a bunch of boards. It's way harder to make an interesting new board and innovate on the battlefield. There's only so many ways you can mix up these circles and these connections of circles than what they can do with the decks. And believe me, they've brought it with the decks. Still, it'd be cool to have one for each fighter, if only thematically, right? The other thing they did here was give you a board in the original style, the circles being the original way the circles are, and on the other side, a very minimalistic one with only a little colored ring, right? To show the artwork is the idea. I don't like that side. For a couple of reasons, I don't like changing horses, mid-race. I like the original look. I want them to be consistent. Thankfully, they're doing both. They didn't switch the look. I know that that's kind of been a divisive thing, though. People don't necessarily like the way all these colored circles look on the board. I guess people find it garish. I don't know. I find it useful. I want it to be really clear. I want 0 questions to be, left unanswered at a glance. So I don't care for it. It also doesn't bother me. I just won't use that side of it. On the other side, though, would have been nice, a different board. But I understand again why it's not there. The game arc here, fantastic back and forth. The characters are nuanced. They are interesting. You can tell that now we're getting to that stage where the cards, it's not just about making the choice of the cards you have, it's a card has choices on it. That always happens with these sort of card games that evolve through time, right? At some point in every collectible card game, you get to that point where the card says, pick one of these 5 things. If you pay double, pick 2 or whatever. So this is there. This is these types of decks are what's in here. And I like that. I think it gives you a lot of choices, a lot of back and forth. This does have a nice arc because there are moments where you are just running away, trying to build up. There are many moments you'll find yourself staring at your hand going, I know what I can do, like all these different things I could do, but which one do I pursue? Speaking of running away, the doors on the board, I think they're okay. They are subtle. It's kind of a subtle thing, and I think, again, that's another tick in this is one for advanced players side of my chalkboard, okay? So there you go. That's game arc. Ease of play is good. The doors are easy to implement. They're not a fiddly rule whatsoever. The characters are a little bit more advanced to play. You want to, sort of pilot them well. Especially, I would say, Little Red is a little trickier to do well with. I really like Beowulf. It's one of my favorites, probably, because I enjoy the whole rage mechanism. But it's easier. It's a little... from a player point of view, I can be a little dumber and enjoy it. Does that make sense? And then, if you're doing Little Red, how you play, when you play, what you managing your discard pile, your basket, that's tricky and it's clever and it's engaging and interesting. So there is that. But ease of play is good. Lastly, tactics, strategy, luck. There's lots of developing play here. And I like that about it. Overall, in this package, I find the board and the doors to be fine. Another board, a nice little innovation on top of that, which is okay. I don't like it as much as the one-way arrows that they had in the Jurassic Park set, for example. But I think it's okay. It's neat. But the characters, these characters are great. They feel distinct and new and fresh and exciting. They bring so many fun matchups to the table because these characters do fit in with a lot of what's come in before, but they feel a little more modern. And I'm only saying that because I'm comparing it to what came before. I'm not saying that, Battle of Legends sets don't feel modern. I just mean knowing those, cracking this open and taking a look at it makes you go, oh, that's a twist. And these both feel like twists. They're great. So highly strategic and very, it responds to what's going on, or allows you to respond to what's going on in clever and interesting ways. I love those scheme cards too. That's just fun. So there you go. That's what I think of it. I really like it. It's not my favorite set that they've come out with. That's still Cobble and Fog. It's great. But I think it sort of falls in line with a lot of the other products, It is missing second board. I understand why it's not there, but I do miss it. And the extra artwork, or, alternate artwork, I don't care for. The doors are cool. The characters are really fun. So, from that point of view, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. That does get a seal of excellence because this game, ladies and gentlemen, is excellent. It's fantastic. Go get yourself Cobble and Fog if you don't have it. But if you do, if you're a fan already of the game, you got to get this. This is going to be great. You're really going to enjoy. So there it is. Unmatched, Little Red, Beowulf, clashing, duking it out. My name is Z Garcia. Thanks for checking this out. I'll see you on the next one.